A Treatise of Satan's Temptations. By Richard Gilpin. A Discourse of the Malice, Power, Cruelty and Diligence of Satan. Fourth and last part of Chapter 6. Of Satan's cruelty. Instances thereof, in his dealing with wounded spirits. 9. Lastly, let us call to mind how long the devil domineered in the world, at this rate of cruelty. When the world grew to a freer use of reason and greater exercise of civility, they found out ways of mitigation, and changed these barbarous rites into more tolerable sacrifices. As in Laodicea, they substituted a hart to be sacrificed instead of a virgin. In Cyprus, an ox was put instead of a man. In Egypt, waxen images instead of men. Images of straw at Rome were cast into Tiber in the place of living men. And the terrible burnings of Moloch, which was not peculiar only to the nations near to Canaan, but was in use also at Carthage, and found in the American islands by the Spaniards. The like brazen images were also found in Lodovicus Vivus's time, by the French, in an island called by them Carolina. These were at last changed into a februation, and instead of burning their children, they only passed them betwixt two fires. But it was long before it came to this. In the time of Socrates, human sacrifices were in use at Carthage, and they continued in the Roman provinces till the time of Tertullian, Eusebius, and Lactantius. Though they had been severely forbidden by Augustus Caesar, and afterward by Tiberius, who was forced to crucify some of the priests that dared to offer such sacrifices, to affright them from those barbarous customs. In other places of the world, how long such things continued, who can tell, especially seeing they were found at Carolina not so very long since. How impossible is it to cast up the total sum of so many large items? When these terrible customs have had so general a practice in most nations, upon so many occasions, upon such seeming plausible principles. When such great numbers have been destroyed at once, and these usages have been so long practiced in the world, and with such difficulty restrained, what vast multitudes of men must, we imagine, have been consumed by Satan's execrable cruelty. 6. Sixthly, there remains one instance more of the devil's cruelty, which is yet different from the former, which I may call his personal cruelties. Because they are acted by his own immediate hand upon certain of his vassals, without the help or interposure of men, who, in most of the forementioned cases, have been as instruments acted by him. Here I might take notice of his fury to those that are possessed. Some have been as it were racked and tortured in their bodies, and their limbs and members so distorted, that it hath been not only matter of pity to the beholders to see them so abused, but also of admiration to consider how such abuses should be consistent with their lives, and that such rendings and tearings have not quite separated the soul from the body. In the Gospels we read of some such cast into the fire, and into the water, Matthew 17:15, others, conversing with tombs and sepulchres, in the cold nights without clothes, and all of them spoken of as creatures sadly tormented, and miserably vexed. The histories of later days tell us of some that vomited crooked pins, pieces of leather, coals, cloth, and such like. Of others snatched out of their houses, and tired even to fainting, and waste of their spirits, as Domina Rosa, mentioned by Bodin, with a great many more to this same purpose. We may take a view of his dealing with witches, who, though he seemed to gratify them in their transportations from place to place, and in their feastings with music and dancings, are but cruelly handled by him very often. The very work they are put upon, which is the destruction of children, men, women, cattle, and the fruits of the earth, is but a base employment. But the account he takes of them, of the full performance of their enterprises, and the cruel beatings they have of him, when they cannot accomplish any of their revenges, is no less than a severe cruelty. He gives them no rest unless they be doing hurt, and when they cannot do it to the persons designed, they are forced to do the same mischief to their own children or relations, that they may gratify their tyrannical master. Bodin relates the story of a French baron, who was afterward put to death for witchcraft, that after he had killed 8 children, was at last upon a design of sacrificing his own child to the devil. And if at any time they grew weary of so execrable a slavery, or confess their wickedness, they are so miserably tormented, that they choose rather to die than leave. And what else but cruelty can these slaves expect from him, when the ceremonies of their entrance into that cursed service betokens nothing else? For their bonds and obligations are usually writ or subscribed with their own blood. And some magical books have been writ with the blood of many children. Besides, the farewell that they have of him at their usual meetings, is commonly this thundering threatening, "Avenge yourselves, or you shall die." All these particulars are collected from the Confessions of Witches by Bodin, Wierus, and others. But leaving these, let us further inquire into Satan's carriage toward those that in America, and other dark and barbarous places know no other God, and give their devoutest worship to him. To those he is not so kind as might be expected. But his constant way is to terrify and torment them, insomuch that some know no other reason of their worship but that he may not hurt them. And since the English colonies went into these parts, these Americans have learned to make this distinction between the Englishman's God and theirs, that theirs is an evil God, and the other a good God. Though that distinction in other places is in the general far more ancient, where they acknowledge two gods, one good, the other bad. And the worse the God is, the saddest, most mournful rites of sacrificing were used, as in caves, and in the night, the manner of the worship fitly expressing the nature of the God they served. Our countrymen have noted of the natives of New England, that the devil appeared to them in ugly shapes, and in hideous places, as in swamps and woods. But these are only the prologue to the tragedy itself, for they only serve to impress upon the minds of his worshippers, what cruelties and severities they are to expect from him. And accordingly he often lets them feel his hand, and makes them know that those dark and dismal preludiums are not for nothing. For sometimes, he appears to the worshippers, tormenting and afflicting their bodies, tearing the flesh from the bones, and carrying them away quick with him. Sometimes 6 have been carried away at once, none ever knowing what became of them. By such bloody acts, as these he kept the poor Americans in fear and slavery. So that as bad a master as he is, they durst not but pay their homage and service to him. All these particulars being put together, will show we do the devil no wrong when we call him cruel. Thanks.